Howdy again, everybody. This is Doc with Thurofan, and I wish I didn't have to get on again and kind of try to explain another very, very serious injury, but those that were watching either online, on FanDuel TV, or those that were, on track for breakfast at the Breeders' Cup and watching a lot of the horses go through their final major workouts for the Breeders' Cup Championship races, fortunately did see that very serious injury that Geaux Rocket Ride sustained to his right front leg while finishing up a 7-furlong workout yesterday under Mike Smith. And we had to wait a little bit just to kind of get exactly what the injury was and what the nature of the injury was and what the next steps were. And while he is in no way, shape, or form out of the woods, it is good to hear that at least surgery will be attempted, I believe today. This is Sunday when this is being recorded, at a hospital to do an arthrodesis procedure. And we talked a lot about what an arthrodesis procedure is when we talked about what happened with Echo Zulu. And fortunately, she appears to be recovering very well so far from her surgery. She obviously is not out of the woods by any means either, but all things are looking good for the type of surgery and injury that she sustained. So with Geaux Rocket Ride, he had a slightly different type of fracture. With Echo Zulu, we talked about how her sesamoid bones, which again are down in that fetlock area of the horse, were both fractured, and there was apparently some damage to the suspensory ligaments there as well. And with Geaux Rocket Ride, he suffered what's known as a condylar fracture, and that is a slightly different area of the fetlock. So if we look back at kind of the normal anatomy of the fetlock, or we would equate it sort of to our ankle. You have the main cannon bone coming down, and then you have the area where the sesamoids are, and that whole joint there, and then you have it moving down into the bones of the hoof. Now, at the far end, or kind of what we call the distal end of the cannon bone, where it kind of meets up with the joint, on both sides of that bone are what are known as condyles, and that's just the anatomical term given to them. And it was here that he suffered what is known as a displaced fracture of that right condyle, and that is a little bit more serious than a non-displaced fracture. A displaced fracture means that the bone really has shifted a little bit out of position with the fracture, and in addition, the fracture did puncture through the skin. So it's what's known as an open fracture, because we do now have bone protruding through skin. So that's basically what an open displaced condylar fracture does mean in this situation, and it creates a couple more obstacles, a couple of more concerns and complications when you're dealing with these types of things. Fortunately for the horse, he was pulled up practically instantly by Mike Smith. And another thing that Mike Smith did that probably served to help at least save his life for now was the fact that he was able to hop off very quick and hold that leg up. So there was no more pressure being put on that fracture site, and especially with an open fracture in that area where you already have bone protruding through the skin, the big concern we have is for infection setting in that area. And by holding that leg up and keeping it out of the dirt, keeping it out of the sand and all of that, you really minimize the amount of infection, hopefully, that would occur in that area. But of course, it is still a very huge concern. So huge props to Mike Smith for acting very quickly and getting off and holding up the leg. Those of you that think way back when with Charismatic and his injury at the end of the Belmont Stakes, similar situation where Chris Antley was able to dismount fairly quickly and hold up that leg. And we all saw that on national TV to help prevent further injury or infection setting in on that leg. So all of those, were as good of things as could have potentially happened in that situation. So what's going to happen now is he's most likely, again, we're recording this on Sunday, the day after the injury, he's most likely going to be undergoing surgery today for what is known as an arthrodesis repair or fusion surgery. So they're going to do very similar as we discussed with Echo Zulu's injury. They're going to go in and they're going to fuse that fetlock joint so that there's no motion left in the joint and provide the proper stability so he can bear weight equally on all four legs. It's probably going to be more tricky of a surgery and a little bit more delicate of a surgery because you have the fact of infection being a concern with that fracture being open. It's a different area of the fetlock that has been fractured, and normally they do try to repair those fractures with screws that will go through and try to compress that fracture back down to allow healing. But the other problem they did notice there, which is again of a concern, is in addition to the fracture, he stretched those suspensory ligaments, or this is at least what is being reported. So again, as we've talked about previously, the suspensory ligament is very, very important in providing stability to that entire fetlock joint so that the whole leg does not sink down, and it provides the proper positioning of the leg and helps kind of keep everything in the proper alignment. Now, if you've got those ligaments that are stretched, those ligaments can't do that anymore, and there's really no way to maintain that proper alignment in the in the leg, and of course the leg will sink down. It's a very painful thing. You can't maintain a horse that way. So arthrodesis or fusing surgery is really the only thing that can be done. Now, as those that have talked to many vets about it, and probably there's been a lot written about it since Echo Zulu's issue, they have come a long way with this arthrodesis surgery that has been pioneered by Dr. Bramlich, but they've made many upgrades to it and adjustments with it, and now they can do different types of arthrodesis procedures. But the basic goal, again, is to go in, fix that fracture so that it'll heal, but then fuse the joint, so this way he does have a good leg to stand on, in layman's terms. Now, as we've said, the surgery itself is not always the biggest hurdle. It is getting over all of the other factors, such as the still risk for infection, making sure that there is good blood supply going down to the area. And we've talked about in previous videos how that is really one of the most crucial things, is that the blood supply down to the hoof and down to that fetlock area is not damaged or destroyed by these fractures and these breakdown injuries. And of course, you do always have the risk of laminitis. You potentially have the risk of colic developing. There's so many things that can go wrong in the post-op period, not necessarily in the operation itself, but the post-op period with these horses, that really is the most critical thing. And so he's going to be watched very, very closely, I'm sure, through the entire post-op period. As I said, it's going to be a delicate surgery. Hopefully they can, do things. These veterinarians and these equine veterinary surgeons can really work wonders these days with these types of injuries, whereas this would not even be a thought. Maybe 15, 20 years ago, he probably would have been euthanized almost immediately. So we're hoping for the best. Our thoughts go out to Geaux Rocket Ride and all of the team, and good luck to the surgeons that will be working on him, and the veterinary staff and the barn staff that will be caring for him after the surgery. But again, just wanted to jump on and explain exactly what kind of fracture we're dealing with here and why it's a little bit different than what Echo Zulu went through. There's a lot of questions that are raised now about, well, could this have been prevented? The same questions were raised with Echo Zulu, and as I've stated a couple of spots on X or Twitter or whatever they're calling it now, I believe X. We may be looking where PET scans are going to become more mandatory in certain cases, before being allowed to enter. But I will say that, the veterinarians that look at these horses at the Breeders' Cup, you are not going to find more veterinary scrutiny over horses than you will at the Breeders' Cup. I mean, they look at these horses constantly, as I had posted on X as well. All horses that are, competing in the Breeders' Cup, even before they work out or go to train in the morning, they are required to jog underweight for the veterinary staff, and they're required to jog again when they come off the track. Their veterinary records are being scrutinized to see if there's any potential for concerns about red flags popping up. And, despite everything we do in veterinary medicine, there are certain things that vets just cannot see and cannot feel. And all the vets that looked at him said he jogged sound and that everything looked good. And that's why, there's a lot more interest becoming in these PET scans, which will pick up things, as well as these stride sensors and things like that, that will pick up things that the human eye and the human body and the human brain just can't pick up, because they're so micro in nature that the horse is compensating enough that it's just not detectable. And in a lot of cases, we find with these types of fractures, there's micro damage there that you just cannot find, by usual palpation or even on X-ray or things like that. So again, hoping for the best for Geaux Rocket Ride. Did want to jump on and explain kind of exactly what type of fracture he has, and if you want more information on the arthrodesis procedure, you can look at the videos we've done about Echo Zulu, and even going further back into just breakdowns themselves and some of those procedures, and also why it is so concerning for horses that develop these types of fractures and being able to save their lives. So if you have any other questions about it, feel free to drop it in the comments. I will try to answer them as best I can, or get you guys the answers. But here's hoping that today and tomorrow are probably going to be the last major days of workouts for a lot of these horses. So hoping everybody comes through these workouts safe and sound, and we have a great Breeders' Cup with no injuries or anything else like that. So as always, I am Doc for Thoroughfan, and if you are looking for the most accurate and up-to-date information that is put out there for you, the racing fans, by us, the racing fans, there's only one place that you need to turn. That is right here at Thoroughfan.